Hi, in this video, I want to talk about creating value through diversification. And when we talk about value here, we're talking about value for shareholders, which, as we know, depends on value for customers. So we'll get to value for customers in the last of these bullets. This is Michael Porter again, and this applies to diversification in general, but it's most directly related to acquisition, merger and acquisition, because when we develop diversification organically, we enter a new business organically, we're unlikely to pay too much for it. It may be difficult to build up, but we're unlikely to pay too much up front. So this applies to both, however. So when you diversify, whether you do it through organic means or through acquisition, you have to pick good target industries. The business you're entering has to be structurally attractive, or it has to be capable of being made attractive. And that's important for acquisitions, because when a firm acquires another firm or starts a new business, or enters a business that it hasn't been in before, then it has to be sure there's going to be profitability. So one of the things that some pharmaceutical companies like Valeant have been knocked for is that they have been buying up either firms or rights to drugs that are old, that have been approved for a long time, and where the pricing is not very efficient, and then they've been raising prices, right? And that's sort of a good example of this. How do you make it structurally attractive? Can you raise prices in the pharmaceutical industry? Certainly. Some old drugs have prices that are just unrealistic, but you also have the threat of pushback, as we see now with Valeant and Turing, where Congress has gotten their foot in the door. So if you can make the industry attractive, great. Cost of entry. Is it going to take, if you're developing it organically, is it going to take so long and be so difficult that you'll never make money? In other words, and this is sort of a question for firms that are following. Firms that are first movers, they sort of have to take this risk. Followers have an opportunity to assess it more carefully. And of course, when you're acquiring, as the text talks about, acquiring firms often pay a premium that capitalizes all the value they can expect from the future of the target, and that's really great for the shareholders of the target. It's not so good for the shareholders of the acquiring firm. So you have to be careful about that. And then the target has to be better off being owned in common with by the acquirer or by the corporation that's entering a new business. It has to be better off under common ownership. It doesn't make any sense if you would be more profitable or better operated separately than if you would be together. So example here, sort of the history of cookies in the first decade of the 21st century. The venture capital firm called Brentwood Partners bought two cookie companies. It bought Stella d'Oro, which makes Italian cookies, and it bought Archway, which were small, inefficient, regional, well-known brands, loyal customers, but not family firms that weren't managed very well, and there were a lot of sort of inefficiencies. And so Brentwood bought these companies, and it started to mess around with operations. It started to shut down plants, and both the market share for both brands just collapsed. Stella d'Oro, because the Stella d'Oro line is Perev, it's kosher, and its biggest market was in New York, among the Jewish population of New York. When they started to mess around with the recipe and stopped making it Perev, it collapsed. So both these became total disasters. And then a firm called Lane, which is now Snyder Lane, Snyder of Hanover's, which is the pretzel company, stepped in and bought them at bargain basement prices, restored them, to the way they were, and then hooked them into its own distribution center. Lane is the largest producer of sort of off-brand, not Nabisco cookies and baked snacks in the country. And so it added a ton of value to these firms by hooking them into modern distribution and modern management, and sort of, an American success story by reviving these firms through acquisition, expanding its product line, and making them more efficient and more valuable for customers and for shareholders.